Wednesday at 5 p.m., the only hour that matters in Tasuku's middle school life. He stands at the door, heart drumming a frantic rhythm against his ribs, finger hovering over the bell like he's defusing a bomb. The door doesn't just open, it's a blonde-haired hurricane. Shia Hoshino beams at him, a sunburst of casual comfort in her t-shirt and leggings. She doesn't hesitate, pulling the door wide. "Takun, come on in!" She's 3 years older, half American, and completely oblivious to the fact that Tasuku has been holding his breath since he crossed the threshold. This ritual started as a neighborly movie night, but now with the blue light of the TV screen illuminating her profile, it feels like a high-stakes mission. Shia scrolls through the genres, genuinely impressed that a kid like him is coming to her for sophisticated film recommendations. The air in the room is heavy with the scent of laundry detergent and Tasuku's growing guilt. He isn't here for the cinematography. He isn't even here for the snacks. He watches her move too close, too bright, and realizes he's playing a dangerous game of pretend. He knows it's wrong to use movie night as a pretext to just stare at her, yet he bows his head and shouts his gratitude. "Thank you very much for today." Shia wants him to relax, laughing off the formality with the ease of a high schooler who sees a little brother, not a suitor. She suggests Shia-chan, a nickname that hits Tasuku like a physical blow. To him, she's Shia-san, mature, confident, and light years out of his league. He grips his knees, sweating through his polo shirt as he tries to calculate the social physics of calling her something so intimate. He just can't do it. She dives into her collection with pride, eager to show off the perfect biopic or a dark thriller. But as she describes the plots, reality catches up to her recommendations. The lead actors are great, the music is amazing, but then her face pales. One by one, the movies reveal their hidden traps. One scene that's kinda lewd though. Shia's internal filter finally short-circuits. Every movie she loves is suddenly a minefield of mature content she doesn't want to explain to a 14-year-old. She hits the floor. A blonde heap of pure mortification, her forehead slamming into the carpet. She lets out a sound that isn't quite human. Tasuku just sits there, eyes wide, watching his idol dissolve into a puddle of "I'm sorry and please don't cry." Just like that, the storm passes and the sunshine returns. Shia is a creature of pure, unfiltered emotion. She wears her heart on her sleeve and a grin that occupies her entire face. Tasuku settles into the floor cushions, the remote clicking in the quiet room. He watches her, not the screen, marveling at how someone can be so loud and yet so captivating. The room goes dark, and the flicker of the film paints Shia's face in shades of gray. Gone is the energetic girl from 5 minutes ago. In the silence, her profile is sharp, her eyes fixed on the distant screen, with a gravity that makes Tasuku's breath hitch. She looks older. She looks untouchable. He sees it now, the cool side of her that usually stays hidden behind the twin-tail tornado. It's a look that makes his chest ache with a sudden, sharp clarity. He doesn't think, the words just start to leak out of him, quiet and desperate, meant for her ears but barely surviving the distance between them. "I like." His heart is in his throat, a thudding mess of middle school nerves, but the blonde hurricane is already back at full force. She turns, beaming with relief, her brain completely bypassing the confession to land on the only topic she understands. "The film? Great. I'm glad you're enjoying it." Tasuku slumps, the romantic tension evaporating into the night air. The movie hasn't even finished, and he's already lost the plot. The final bell isn't just a signal to go home. For Tasuku, it's the starting gun for his weekly highlight. His friends are already plotting their karaoke takeover, but he's already checking his watch. Wednesday is movie night. It's the one day where the walls between him and the golden-haired whirlwind next door finally come down. Then the phone buzzes, and the world tilts. Shia is at the theater alone. He stares at the screen, the bright white light of her feeling like a personal eviction notice. He's standing in the hallway, surrounded by people, but the sudden silence in his head is deafening. He ends up at karaoke anyway, a hollow shell holding a tambourine while the girls belt out pop hits. His mind is a loop of wasted effort, the extra thorough toothbrushing, the exercise routine, all the prep for a date that only existed in his head. He's popular enough to be here, but his soul is currently wandering the aisles of a movie theater without him. He's outside punishing himself with a jump rope when she finally rolls up on her bike. Shia looks at him, bewildered by the sudden athletic intensity, while he tries to pretend he isn't a mess of middle school angst. She leans in, offering a compliment that feels like a consolation prize. "You're funny and handsome." She explains her solo trip with a logic only she could follow. She didn't want to bore him with her weird tastes. She stares at him, genuinely confused that he'd actually want to be there. Tasuku's heart sinks as he realizes she thinks their movie nights are a chore he's tolerating, not a lifeline he's clinging to. Then she says the words that make his pulse flatline. She offers him an out, a clean break from their Wednesdays to save him the trouble. Want to call it quits? She's trying to be the mature neighbor, but to Tasuku, it sounds like the end of the world. The panic wins. The words spill out before he can filter them, raw and desperate. "And I like you," he catches himself at the edge of the cliff, pivoting to the movies, but the truth is already vibrating in the air. He needs her to understand it's not the films, it's the gravity she carries when the lights go down. "You're really cool," and the world goes dead quiet. In the fading light, Shia's face loses its frantic energy. For one heartbeat, she isn't the eccentric neighbor or the movie geek, she's just a girl standing under the power lines, looking at him with a look that's far too mature for a middle schooler to handle. And just like that, the tension snaps. She laughs it off, retreating back into her moody otaku shell and shoving sweets at him like an apology for existing. The confession is buried under a pile of candy and self-deprecation. Their Wednesday is safe for another week, and Tasuku is left holding a chocolate bar, watching her walk away. She's kinda cool, sorta. Saturday afternoon, and while the rest of the world is productive, Tasuku's house is a crime scene of pure laziness. He walks in from training, heart still heavy with the thought of Shia-san, only to find his older brother and sister engaged in a high-stakes wrestling match over a blanket. The clock is screaming noon, but for these two, the day hasn't even started. "Come on, it's 12 o'clock. He looks at his brother, then back at the image of Shia in his head. The mysterious, mature girl who actually does things with her life. It's a painful comparison. He's surrounded by human-shaped sloths while the girl of his dreams is probably out there having a wonderful day off. He checks the calendar like a man counting down a prison sentence. Wednesday is still light years away, and the wait is physical. He just wants one day where he's not surrounded by poop. Tsumugu drags him out to the bookstore, but Tasuku's mind is elsewhere, specifically in the self-help section. He finds it, the holy grail of middle school desperation. 10 tricks to help you get older girls' attention. It's humiliating, it's pathetic, and he's currently gripping it like a lifeline. He just needs a strategy, something to bridge the gap between a kid like him and a woman of the world like Shia. He's deep in the trenches of romance theory when his brother wanders back into range. Panic is a hell of a drug. Tsumugu looms over him, and Tasuku pivots like his life depends on it, shoving the dating book behind a wall of random novels. He grabs the first 3 things within reach, total nonsense he'll never read just to look like a normal human with a functioning brain. He watches his brother leave, breath hitching in his throat. He's safe for 5 seconds, but then the air in the bookstore changes. There's a blonde ponytail in the next aisle, and his heart stops. I do wonder about these books. It's Shia, right here, in the wild, looking effortlessly cool while she browses for what he assumes are deep, philosophical screenplays. Tasuku is frozen, his hands still clutching the 10 tricks book like a smoking gun. If she sees him with this, it's over. The cool neighbor facade will crumble into dust. He looks down at his hands, then at her. She's in another league, a genius just breathing the same bookstore air as him. He loses her for a second, then, bam, she's right there, eyes lighting up when she sees him. "Oh, Takun, hey there," but the universe isn't done with him. Tsumugu reappears like a social wrecking ball, spotting the book Shia is hiding behind her back. Suddenly, everyone's secrets are on the table, and Tasuku is just trying to survive the next 30 seconds of eye contact. Tsumugu is being his usual obnoxious self, but Shia is turning a shade of red that suggests she's about to combust. She isn't hiding a romance novel or something scandalous. She's holding a guide on how to write scripts. She's stammering, trying to find the words while Tasuku just stares. The cool, aloof neighbor is suddenly a mess of nerves over a hobby. Save. The world slows down. Shia stands there, clutching her screenwriting book to her chest like it's her own heart. She looks away, the self-deprecation flowing back in, but she admits the truth. She doesn't just watch movies, She wants to make them. She's creating worlds while he's just trying to survive middle school. I write them, like scripts as a hobby. Tasuku is floored. He knew she was special, but this is a whole new level of cool. She thinks he's judging her, but all he can think is that he's found someone truly incredible. Tsumugu eventually gets bored and heads for his coffee, leaving the two of them alone in the quiet hum of the bookstore. Tasuku can't help but say it out loud. "You really are so cool, Shia-san." The mood is perfect until she mentions his brother. Shia smiles that soft, genuine smile, talking about how mature and reliable Tsumugu is. The praise feels like a bucket of ice water. She sees his lazy, blanket-wrestling brother as an older brother figure to look up to. Tasuku's heart sinks. He's not fighting a script or a movie preference, he's fighting his own brother's phantom reputation. Is this really what I'm up against? Wednesday at 5. It's the 1 hour in the week where the rest of the world stops and the countdown finally hits 0. Tasuku stands outside, his heart hammering against his ribs as he rings the bell. He's spent the whole week building up this version of Shia in his head, the mysterious, mature older girl. Then the door swings open, and there she is. Low twin tails, a wide grin, and a greeting that melts the nerves right out of him. "Welcome, Takun." He loves that she's a mystery, a locked box he's slowly learning the combination to. But right now, the mystery is mostly just leaky. The movie credits roll and Shia is absolutely losing it, her face red and buried in her hands. She's gasping for air between sobs, wailing, "No matter how many times I watch it, such a good story." Tasuku doesn't say a word. He just offers the tissues, wondering if the mature woman in his head is ever coming back. The room is a battlefield of crumpled paper and stacked volumes. While Shia tries to argue that the movie was actually a hopeful masterpiece, Tasuku notices the clutter. It's not just mess, it's work. He reaches for a binder, the word "save" staring back at him in bold letters. Shia nearly tackles him, snatching it away in a blur of motion. Her face is a shade of pink that matches her room as he asks the question she's clearly been dreading. "Are you writing a screenplay?" The air in the room shifts. Shia starts stammering, the energetic facade cracking to reveal a deep-seated fear that her passion is just amateur junk. She looks down, her voice small, promising he can read it someday for sure. But someday stretches out like 1,000 years away. Tasuku watches her move across the room, feeling like he's just seen a glimpse of her soul, only for her to slam the door on it. The heavy mood is punctured by a dinner invite. Suddenly, it's a family affair. His place, her family, and a plate of hamburgers that look like they survived a house fire. Tasuku tries to focus on his meal, but his mind is still back in that messy room, wondering when he'll finally be trusted with her secrets. The table talk turns to movies, and that's when Tsumugu slides into the conversation like he owns it. He's leaning back, casual and cool, mentioning he just watched The Cabin. Shia's eyes light up. This is the common ground Tasuku's been trying to build for months, and his brother just found it by accident. Then comes the blow. Shia and Tsumugu start bonding over grotesque horror, the stuff she said was too much for Tasuku. They're laughing, perfectly in sync, while Tasuku sits there being told to eat his peppers like a child. He looks at his brother, and for the first time the annoyance turns into something sharper. "I never felt such hate towards my brother before." He doesn't want to be the safe choice. He wants to see the world through her eyes, even the ugly, grotesque parts. He wants to read those pages, to understand the person who writes in the dark while the rest of the world sleeps. He walks down the hall, expecting quiet, but finds the door to Shia's room cracked open. The light spills out into the hallway like a physical weight, and there, sitting in her chair, reading the very thing she refused to show him, is his brother. The intimacy of the scene, the shared space, the shared secret lands with the force of a punch to the gut. Tsumugu hands it back with a casual shrug, telling her it's good. Just like the last one. He's not even trying. He suggests the only reason Tasuku is into movies is because of her, and Shia just laughs. She laughs like it's the funniest joke in the world, while Tasuku stands in the dark, invisible. Shia looks away, her smile fading into something brittle. She's convinced herself that Tasuku only likes the ideal version of her, the nice neighbor who shares movies. She's sure that if he saw the real her, the messy, obsessed, dark-loving amateur, he'd walk away. "He only sees one side of me, that's why I think he doesn't like me." She wants things to stay the same because the same is safe, But on her calendar, circled in the middle of June, is a note to herself, to let me read her screenplay. She's trying to find the courage, even as Tasuku stands just feet away, feeling the gap between them grow wider than it's ever been. The morning sun is far too bright for someone whose heart was just pulverized. While Tsumugu yawns through his usual routine, Tasuku is a ghost under the blankets, trying to hide from a world where his brother is the one getting the smiles. Every bite of breakfast feels like lead. Tasuku watches his sister, Shizuku, wondering if anyone in this house actually sees the real Shia Hoshino. He's tired of the mystery, tired of the gatekeeping, and most of all, he's tired of being the only one left in the dark. He stares into his bowl, the realization stinging. She's the one who doesn't let me to. He needs a second opinion, but asking Shizuku for insight is like asking a brick wall for a poem. She offers the standard neighborly platitudes. Cute, good girl, always smiling, until she lands on the one physical detail that makes Tasuku's face burn. She blinks, completely deadpan, and adds she has huge breasts. The clatter of his chair provides all the punctuation he needs. He's out the door before the conversation can get any more awkward, leaving Tsumugu to watch his back with that lazy, knowing smirk. Training might be a grind, but at least the weights don't have secret screenplays. Tasuku finds himself staring at nothing but the pavement. Every step echoes with the memory of Tsumugu and Shia laughing together. It wasn't just a conversation. To Tasuku's ears, it sounded like a confession, a level of intimacy he's been chasing for months while his brother just stumbled into it. The gym floor is cold, and the basketball hoop feels a mile away. His friends aren't buying the I'm fine act for a second. They can see the cloud hanging over his head from across the court. He tries to shake it off, insisting he's not down, but his shoulders are practically touching his ears. Then the world stops. Through the glass of a donut shop, the morning's misery evaporates. There she is, alone, quiet, and tucked into a corner booth. The door chime rings out with a sharp kachak, and suddenly Tasuku isn't dejected anymore. He's a predator of opportunity, hoping he's not about to make things worse. He freezes. This isn't the perfect neighbor facade. Shia is hunched over a donut, her cheeks flushed and eyes brimming with actual messy tears. It's the most real he's ever seen her, and it's terrifying. He almost turns to run, terrified of intruding on a grief he doesn't understand. One blink, and the secret is out. Their eyes lock across the shop, and the silence is loud enough to shatter glass. Shia's breath hitches, her mouth still half full of donut as the realization hits her. Ah! The sound of a facade finally, completely cracking in two. The tension is thick enough to spread on a bagel. Tasuku stammers out an excuse about mixed training, trying to act like he didn't just witness a mental breakdown over confectionery. Shia quickly wipes her face, reverting to that soft, high school senior tone. Hello there, Takun? She's overcompensating, and it's adorable. She's bought enough donuts to feed a small army, rambling about how crispy donuts are better than Mr. Ones, as if that explains why she was sobbing 5 seconds ago. She shoves the tray forward, a desperate peace offering made of sugar and glaze. Between bites, she lets it slip, the real reason she writes. She mentions Spielberg's Catch Me If You Can, talking about how the donuts help keep the tension from going over the top. She wants to write stories that connect people, human stories that bridge the gaps she feels every day. For a moment, the grotesque horror fan is gone, replaced by someone just trying to be heard. Tasuku just listens. He takes a bite of his own donut, the sweetness masking the lump in his throat. It's difficult, so incredibly difficult to navigate the space between who she is and who he wants her to be, but for the first time, he isn't trying to pull her back to the pedestal. He watches her, really watches her, as she quietly works through the rest of the tray. The light in the shop catches the stray hairs of her twin tails, and the question that's been haunting him finally changes shape. It's no longer about what she's hiding, it's about who she really is. Back at home, the Netflix search bar is the new battlefield. Tasuku is determined to see what she sees. Shizuku peers over his shoulder, suggesting they just get a family plan. Her casual laziness a sharp contrast to the high-stakes emotional investigation Tasuku is currently conducting. Tsumugu is already on it, typing away with the ease of someone who's lived 1,000 lives while Tasuku was still learning his times tables. He's the gatekeeper of the streaming account, and for once, Tasuku is willing to play by his rules just to get closer to her world. Nothing but the screen glow illuminates the room as Tasuku finally asks the question that's been burning a hole in his chest. What kind of person is Shia-san? Tsumugu pauses, his fingers hovering over the keys, his expression shifting from teasing to something uncharacteristically serious. Tsumugu leans back, the shadow of a smirk returning. He doesn't mention her smile or her looks. He just delivers the one verdict that changes everything for Tasuku. She is very complicated. It's a challenge, not a description. And as Tasuku stands there, he can't help but feel a wave of pure, petty relief. At least his brother didn't mention her breasts. The screen glow is the only thing keeping Tasuku's hope alive, as he stares at a dull response from the girl who's currently a walking riddle. It's Wednesday, the clock is ticking toward 3, and Shia mentions she's heading to the theater. If he's ever going to figure out what complicated really looks like, he has to stop being a spectator and start taking the lead. He types it out before his brain can second-guess his thumbs. Can I go too? The air in the hallway gets thin while he waits for the little bubble to pop up. His friends are buzzing about anime in the background, but Tasuku is light years away, anchored to a digital status bar. The notification pops with a deadline that makes his heart skip a beat. It starts at 15:40, if you can make it, sure. That's 40 minutes to cross town, which leaves exactly 0 seconds for a middle schooler to have a nervous breakdown. It's a blur of soap suds and spinning spokes. Tasuku is a one-man whirlwind, scrubbing off the school day and pedaling like he's trying to outrun his own shadow. His lungs are on fire, his legs are screaming, and the theater entrance is finally in sight. He pulls up dripping sweat and doubled over, gasping out an apology for the wait. But then he looks up, and there she is, radiant, cheerful, and completely oblivious to the Olympic-level effort it took to get here. "Hello, Takun," she chirps, her smile hitting him harder than the bike ride did. Before he can even reach for his wallet, she's already sliding the ticket across. She brushes off his offer to pay with the ease of someone who's used to being the big sister, insisting she's got it covered thanks to her part-time job. She's not interested in yen. She's got a different kind of currency in mind. She looks him over with a mischievous glint in her eyes before leaning in. "Instead of that, would you let me touch your muscles?" Tasuku freezes as his brain stalls out at the sheer absurdity of the trade. Her fingers grip his arm, firm and curious, and the heat from her hand might as well be a branding iron. She's analyzing his bicep like it's a science project, muttering to herself about how it feels. Then she drops the bomb. "Is this how Tom Holland's feels?" Suddenly, Tasuku isn't just flustered, he's decided that a Hollywood superstar is officially his mortal enemy. They settle into the dim light of the theater, the smell of popcorn filling the space between them. Shia leans back, her expression softening into something sincere. "So that way we can be friends who can talk to each other about them." The word friends echoes in the dark, a kind gesture that feels like a beautiful, unintentional shove into the friend zone. The movie starts, but Tasuku is staring at a different screen. He looks at her silhouette, watching her pick at a donut, and he can't shake the image of her crying at the shop. He liked her because she was mysterious and attractive, but now that he's seen the cracks in the mask, everything feels more real, and way more dangerous for his heart. She turns to him, her face lit by the flicker of the film, and that bright, cheerful expression is back in full force. It's the image he fell for, but now he knows there's a labyrinth behind those blue eyes that he's barely even entered yet. The credits roll, and Tasuku is left in a daze. He didn't follow the plot, he didn't catch the nuances, and he definitely didn't understand all those difficult words. He looks at Shia, who's vibrating with excitement over the story, and feels the distance between them. How can she understand a masterpiece like this but be so completely blind to the guy sitting right next to her? He sits on a bench outside, feeling like a total idiot while Shia continues to be a mystery wrapped in a blonde ponytail. He doesn't know why he likes her this much, but he knows he's in too deep to quit now. And as he stares at a photo of a certain celebrity, he makes a silent vow. He's not a fan of Tom Holland. He's his enemy. A new morning, same obsession. Tasuku nearly folds himself in half bowing as Shia glides by on her bike, a vision of effortless blonde energy. He's still chewing on the shame of his public breakdown at the donut shop, a moment of pure, unadulterated uncool that he's sure has ruined his chances. Shia just offers a bright, good morning and pedals on, completely unaware that her neighbor is currently caught in a cycle of self-loathing. But wait, life throws a curveball. A girl from the elementary school approaches him, hands shaking as she thrusts a letter into his personal space. Tasuku barely has time to process the pink envelope before he's back home, staring into the abyss of his sister's curiosity. Shizuku holds the evidence aloft like a trophy, asking the question every older sister lives for. Could this be the cause? The letter is painfully earnest, full of scribbled admissions about how cool he looks on his way to school. Shizuku snaps a photo for the group chat, already pushing him to just go out with the kid. But Tasuku doesn't hesitate. His heart is already a locked room with only one occupant. He scans the confession with a heavy sort of respect and delivers the verdict. No, I'll turn her down. Training for Tom Holland levels of muscle is hard enough without a guidebook telling you you're doing it all wrong. Tasuku sweats through push-ups while obsessing over 10 ways to get an older woman to notice you. The book drops a truth bomb that lands harder than any workout. For older women, being viewed as just the cool neighbor is a one-way ticket to the friend zone. To older women, being cool is taboo. He's spiraling. Does she only like his cool mask? Would she actually hate the real, sweaty middle school mess he is? The alarm blares at 7 a.m., but he's already a wreck. Then, the sound of a rattling bicycle chain cuts through his internal monologue. Shia is right there, bright and loud, a sharp reminder that while he's playing 4D chess with his feelings, she's just living her life. Between sets of sit-ups, the reality of the rejection sinks in. He doesn't want to be the cool boy in the elementary girl's letter, and he doesn't want to be Shia's cool younger friend. He wants something messier, truer. His voice is too low for anyone to hear over the gym noise, but the thought is deafening. I don't just like her because she's cool. I like everything about her. The moment of truth arrives at the school fence. The elementary girl is waiting, hiding behind her taller friend like a shield. Tasuku walks toward them, every step feeling like he's crushing a piece of his own heart, because he knows exactly how it feels to be the one waiting for an answer. He stops, clears his throat, and prepares to deliver the blow. The silence between them is a physical weight. Tasuku looks into the girl's wide, hopeful eyes and sees his own reflection. Just a boy who likes someone who might never look back. He swallows his nerves, his mind racing through every possible way to be gentle, before finally landing on the only truth he has. Well, thank you for the letter. He bows, keeping his eyes on the pavement. I have someone I like, so I can't go out with you. The impact is immediate. The girl doesn't argue, she just shatters. A sharp sob, a blur of motion, and she's running away into the distance with her friend trailing behind. Tasuku stands there in the wake of the wreckage, the coolest boy feeling like the absolute worst person on the planet. His chest aches, a sharp, throbbing reminder of his own unrequited struggle. He screams it at the empty air, at the houses, at the universe that seems to thrive on adolescent misery, because I have someone I like already. He clutches his shirt, wondering how he's supposed to bridge the gap with Shia when he can't even handle a simple confession without making someone cry. How can I convey my feelings to Shia-san? Tasuku's grip on the basketball is tight, his knuckles white against the rubber. He's playing the oldest game in the book. If this shot goes in, he'll find the courage to tell her. He takes the leap, releases the ball, and it clunks off the rim with a hollow, mocking thud. No luck, no signs from the universe. He realizes he can't rely on a miracle. If he wants Shia to understand him, he has to find the words himself. Back in the familiar dim light of Shia's room, the movie night is taking a sharp turn into the grotesque. She leans in, eyes wide with a mix of excitement and caution, asking if he's okay with this scary stuff. Then the math finally hits her. She blinks, recalculating her neighbor's entire existence before blurting out the question. He doesn't flinch. I'm 13. The screen flickers with an R15 rating. And suddenly, Shia's certain she's corrupting a child. Shia scrambles to change the vibe, tossing the remote as if it's radioactive. She launches into a pitch for the thrill of a one-location thriller, explaining how the tension builds when characters are trapped in a single room. She's animated, gesturing wildly, completely unaware that Tasuku isn't looking at the screen anymore. He's tired of the safe bets and the movie friend boundaries. Every bit of oxygen in the room vanishes. Before Shia can finish her sentence, Tasuku lunges forward, his hands slamming against the wall behind her with a definitive bam. He pins her into the very no-way-out situation she was just describing. Her eyes go wide, her breath hitching, as he leans into her space, shattering the polite distance between neighbor and friend. His face is burning, but he doesn't look away. The guidebook, the basketball, all of it falls away for the truth. He stares straight into her stunned expression and lets it out. Shia-san, I like you. He doesn't just mean the cool version she puts on, he means every messy, eccentric part of her. Shia freezes, the weight of a real rejection suddenly feeling much closer than a movie script. The confession hangs in the air, but Shia isn't swooning. She's shrinking. She looks down, her hair shielding her face as she desperately constructs a wall out of words. Takun, you don't know me. She can't accept it, convinced that his feelings are built on a version of her that doesn't actually exist. Tasuku watches her withdraw, his frustration mounting as she tries to disqualify his heart. Her voice drops to a whisper, heavy with an ache she's kept hidden behind all those eccentricities. She closes her eyes, finally letting him see the self-loathing beneath the surface. If you knew everything about me, you wouldn't like me. She's certain that the real Shia Hoshino is someone no one could ever actually want. Tasuku is completely thrown by the drama. He searches for a logical explanation for her gloom, landing on the most middle school problem possible. She thinks she's not popular. Shia blinks, the tension deflating as he tries to wrap his head around her secret. He admits he isn't exactly Mr. Popularity himself, but he can't see how that changes the way he feels. He studies her, really takes her in, and the pieces finally click into place. It's not a deep, dark secret, it's just her personality. He lets out a breath, his expression turning deadpan. Aren't you a pain in the ass? Shia's brain short-circuits. She was prepared for a rejection or a confession, but she wasn't ready for a call-out. Tasuku doubles down, explaining that he's seen this exact type on TV, the annoying girlfriend who overthinks everything and makes life difficult. He shouts it with a weird kind of triumph, finally understanding why he felt so out of his depth. Shia looks like she's been struck by lightning, her hands trembling as she quietly concedes. She won't deny it. She is a handful. Suddenly, the vulnerability is replaced by pure, red-faced indignation. She points a finger at him, her pigtails practically vibrating with embarrassment. Takun, you're a bit, aren't you being rude? The distance is gone, replaced by the chaotic energy of two people who are finally being honest, even if that honesty involves name-calling. Instead of apologizing, Tasuku just smiles. He sees her clearly now, the pain and the beauty combined. He leans in one last time, eyes sparkling with a new kind of determination. Once I get to know all about you, Shia-san, I'll tell you I like you again. He isn't backing down from the challenge of her grotesque side, he's diving in head first. He doesn't wait for a reply. He throws out a quick, I'll do my best, and bolts out the door, leaving Shia sitting alone in the silence of her room. She stares at the spot where he just sat, her heart hammering against her ribs like a trapped bird. All she can manage is a faint, bewildered ee, as the reality of his vows sinks in. Back home, Tasuku is feeling pretty good about his honest new approach. He breaks it down for Tsumugu. Complicated was just a nice way of saying Shia is a total pain. Tsumugu stops mid-bite, looking at his brother like he's just announced a plan to walk into a lion's den wearing meat-flavored cologne. He delivers the warning with a face full of genuine concern. Don't you go and tell that to Shia-chan? Wednesday arrives, 3:30 p.m. sharp, finding Tasuku standing at the door with a stomach full of butterflies and a head full of determination. He wants the truth, the grit, and the unlikable parts. Then the door opens, and Shia is right there, beaming like the confession never even happened. She greets him with a breezy, high-pitched welcome that suggests she's decided to pretend the last week was just a collective fever dream. The air in the room is thick enough to choke on. They're sitting on opposite sides of the floor, the movie friend routine feeling more like a forced truce. Tasuku's knees are locked in a formal seiza, his heart hammering against his ribs. It's the same room, the same snacks, but the silence feels brand new, fragile, and dangerous. He can't take it anymore. The distance is killing him, and the guilt over his bluntness is worse. He keeps his eyes down, the words scratching at his throat until he finally forces them out. Sorry about the other day. Saying you're a pain in the ass, he lets the apology hang there. A small offering to bridge the gap between their cushions. Shia doesn't miss a beat, her face shifting back into that frustratingly perfect, aloof mask. She gives him a closed-eye smile that doesn't reach her expression, her pigtails perfectly still. She puts him on the defensive immediately. Takun, it seems you can't focus on the movie. Should we call it a night? She's testing him, pushing him toward the door before he can see anything real. Tasuku freezes. The room seems to shrink into a void of pure black, leaving only the two of them under a harsh, imaginary spotlight. He can feel the future slipping away. He knows if he says the wrong thing now, the movie nights, the proximity, and the chance to understand her will vanish forever. His heart isn't just beating, it's pleading. He doesn't run. He leans in, mouth open, and blurts out the proof of his devotion. He's watched the grotesque stuff she likes. Catch Me If You Can, Good Will Hunting. He's done the homework. Shia's eyes go wide, the pupils shrinking as the air leaves her lungs. All she can manage is a faint, breathless huh, as her carefully constructed walls start to rattle. The tension breaks into a clumsy, genuine conversation. Tasuku admits the movies were great but difficult, his face scrunched with the effort of trying to be an adult. Shia looks away, her fingers tracing the floor as she admits she's not good at sharing her impressions. For the first time all day, the silence isn't heavy, it's just two kids trying to find the right words for a feeling that doesn't have a name yet. Then Tasuku spots it, a framed piece of her world she tried to hide. He points it out, his voice dropping into a register of pure, unadorned admiration. He mentions the screenplay prize she won in a competition, and the atmosphere shifts instantly. He isn't just looking at his neighbor anymore. He's looking at the creator she's so terrified to show him. You won a prize on a competition. Shia is vibrating with pure, unadulterated panic. She tries to wave it off, her movements jerky and desperate, claiming she actually lost, but Tasuku is on a roll. He puts the pieces together, the prize, the screenplay, the breakdown he saw from afar. He looks her straight in the eyes and lands the hit. The reason you were crying, suddenly, the donuts and the tears finally make sense to him, and Shia looks like she wants to dissolve into the floorboards. That's it. Threshold reached. Shia springs up, her face a volcanic red, and grabs Tasuku by the arm. She doesn't ask. She hauls him toward the door with the strength of someone whose deepest secret was just poked with a stick. Tasuku tries to keep talking, tries to explain that losing doesn't mean she's bad at it, but he's already being deported from Hoshino land. She stands at the threshold, clutching the door handle like a lifeline, her expression a chaotic mix of fury and absolute mortification. Before he can get another word out, she delivers the final blow and slams the door on his face. Stop thinking you know what you're talking about. The hallway goes silent, leaving Tasuku alone outside, officially a movie friend, who knows just a little too much for his own safety. The morning air is crisp, but for Tasuku, the vibe is radioactive. After yesterday's door-slamming disaster, he expects a restraining order, but instead, he gets a casual wave. Shia is acting like her brain didn't just melt in front of him. She's leaning on her bike, tossing out a breezy good morning as if she didn't deport him from her apartment 12 hours ago. Tasuku can only stare, his own internal gears grinding against the sudden shift in gravity. Tasuku struggles to bring it up, the tears, the prize, the moment he finally saw her. But Shia has already built a new wall out of polite excuses. She blames the whole breakdown on being under the weather, a classic move, to make his breakthrough look like a hallucination. She hops on her bike with a quick well then, leaving him standing in the dust of her departure. Tasuku watches her ride off, the weight of the distance settling in his chest. I'm back to square one. School doesn't offer any sanctuary. Tasuku is a walking storm cloud, and even his classmates are picking up the frequency. Mochizuki and Kano-chan are circling like sharks who smelled a drop of romantic blood in the water. They don't even have to ask, they can read the catastrophe written in the slump of his shoulders. Mochizuki leans in, blunt as a sledgehammer, observing that he really is complicated. They offer him a lifeline in the form of a DVD, a movie to help break the ice with his neighbor. It's almost insulting how easily they see through him. They know exactly why he's moping, and they're not even trying to be subtle about their charity. Tasuku looks at the disc, then back at Mochizuki, wondering if his entire soul is just a glass window. Mochizuki, do you like me after all? He wonders, baffled by the sudden support system. The harsh truth hits. He isn't the cool protagonist, he's the transparent kid who everyone pities. But as the sun starts to dip, fortune finally does him a favor. He spots a familiar blonde ponytail and a bicycle near the station. It's Shia. No apartment doors to hide behind this time, just the open street and a second chance. He doesn't just walk up, he commits. Tasuku plants his feet, and drops into a bow so deep his forehead practically grazes the pavement. It's a middle schooler's version of a grand gesture, raw and desperate. He ignores the passers-by and the confusion on her face. The only thing that matters is the words he needs to land. "I'm sorry about yesterday." Shia flails, trying to wave off the intensity. She's desperate to keep things light, to pretend his apology isn't necessary because I wasn't angry in the first place though. But Tasuku isn't letting her slide back into the movie friend's safety zone. He looks up, his eyes locked on hers, begging for more than just a polite truce. "I want to understand. I just want a chance." He pulls out his secret weapon, the movie his classmates lent him. The title hangs in the air, Oko's Inn. It's a simple question, but it feels like he's asking for her hand in marriage. Shia freezes, the casual mask finally cracking. She stammers, her face heating up as she tries to process the invitation. But I also want to watch the rest of yesterday's. The realization that he actually wants to spend more time with her, the real her, is too much for Shia's systems to handle. She lets out a frantic laugh, her face glowing. She hops back on her bike, the chain rattling as she starts to pedal with the fury of someone fleeing a crime scene. She throws a challenge over her shoulder, a desperate attempt to regain control. "Don't follow me if you can't keep up." She's flying, her skirt fluttering in the wind, looking back at him instead of the road ahead. The world narrows down to her racing heart and the boy behind her. And then, the universe decides to remind her that physics doesn't care about your romantic tension. There's no time to break, no time to scream. Just the cold, hard reality of a telephone pole. The bike is a heap, and Shia is a mess, clutching her head as Tasuku skids to a halt beside her. He's not laughing. He's hovering, his hands reaching out to check the bruise forming on her forehead. The proximity is sudden and unscripted. Shia winces, not just from the pain, but from the raw honesty in his voice when he asks if she's all right. She can only let out a muffled "mmph," her bravado completely shattered. As they walk the mangled bike home, the tension finally snaps into something resembling their old rhythm. Tasuku looks at her, the girl who tries so hard to be cool or grotesque, and lands the final perfect blow. He tells her that honestly, bumping into telephone poles can be expected from Shia-san. She erupts, her face redder than the bruise, shouting back that he's being too direct. The ice isn't just broken, it's pulverized. The aftermath of a head-on collision with a telephone pole is rarely this quiet. Shia stands frozen at her front door, clutching her head, while the world spins and her keys remain stubbornly out of reach. Tasuku isn't letting her suffer in the hallway. He steps into the lead, opening his door to the girl who usually keeps him at a distance. He looks back, his voice steady despite the hammer in his chest, and says, "Come to my house, I'll cool your forehead." The kitchen is a symphony of sharp, cold noises, the clatter of ice, the rustle of a bag, the hiss of a sink. Shia sits on the sofa, pressing the makeshift ice pack to her temple, looking more like a ruffled bird than a cool upperclassman. For Tasuku, every breath he takes in the room has suddenly become very expensive. The schedule, the rules, the safety of their Wednesday-only agreement, all of it is currently lying in a heap on the floor. He stares at her, the thought finally landing with the weight of a mountain. It's not Wednesday, and yet today I'm alone with Shia-san. He's pacing. It's the kind of aimless, nervous energy that only a middle school boy in proximity to his crush can generate. Shia is miles away, her fingers tracing the ice pack as she realizes her keys are likely still sitting on her entryway table. Tasuku tries to bridge the gap with the only weapons he has, a bag of potato chips and a couple of cans. It's a peace offering in the form of salt and carbonation, a desperate attempt to make this feel like a normal movie night instead of a medical emergency. And then, he forgets. He forgets the rules of engagement, forgets the tension, and simply reacts to the sweat on his back. The shirt comes off in one fluid motion, and Shia's brain effectively hits the Alt F4 button. She's a mess of stuttered protests and averted eyes, but Tasuku is lethal in his sincerity. He doesn't even realize he's being bold. He just looks at her, flush-faced and honest, and drops a line that would make a seasoned player blush. "I always take a shower before meeting with you." They retreat to the safety of the screen. Shia grabs an anime film, using the story to build a wall between them again. She starts picking apart the direction, the quality of the lines, the way the art breathes. This is her home turf. She's not the girl who hit a pole or the girl who's locked out. She's the critic, the creator. Tasuku watches her, realizing that while he's looking at the screen, she's looking at the soul of the thing. He catches her smiling. It's a real one. No performance, no cool persona, just genuine joy at a well-made scene. It's so beautiful it actually hurts to look at. But the moment his gaze lingers a second too long, Shia feels the heat of it. The smile vanishes instantly, replaced by that familiar guarded twitch of her lips. She asks why he's making that face. But the real question is why she feels the need to hide the best part of herself the moment he notices it. The movie is still playing, but the underlying tension between them has turned lethal. Shia's defenses are back up, higher than ever. She looks down, her voice dropping into that dark, self-deprecating register that keeps him at arm's length. She's convinced that his kindness is a symptom of his innocence, that he only likes her because he doesn't know the grotesque truth. She delivers the verdict with a heavy heart. I don't think an honest boy like Takun would understand it any better. Tasuku won't take the rejection. He leans in, his eyes wide and burning with a resolve that borders on obsession. He wants to understand. Not just the movies, not just the cool Shia, but everything she's trying to bury. He's right on the edge of a breakthrough when the universe intervenes. A sharp electronic beep cuts through the tension, the sound of a front door unlocking. His mom is home, and the bubble of their private world pops instantly. Panic mode, engaged. Shia is on her feet, backpack in hand, her persona as a casual companion snapping back into place before the door can even swing open. She's out of there, but not before throwing one final lifeline over her shoulder. She anchors their next encounter, a promise to return to the safety of their routine. Let's watch it next Wednesday. And then comes the final, soul-crushing realization. As she fumbles with her bag at the door, the keys, the very reason she was trapped in his house, slide into view. They were there the whole time. It's the ultimate punchline to their high-tension afternoon. Shia doesn't wait for a reaction. She's gone in a blur of twin tails and red cheeks. Tasuku can only shout after her, holding out the ice pack like a lonely trophy, telling her to keep it cool for 10 more minutes. The ice is pulverized, but the girl is still running. The rain is coming down in sheets, the kind of weather that turns your socks into sponges and your plans into puddles. Tasuku is on delivery duty, one umbrella for his sister, Shizuku, who managed to trap herself in a Starbucks without a plan. He walks in expecting a quick handoff, but his sister is already in full older sibling mode. No gratitude, just another order to keep an eye on her stuff while she grabs a refill. He heaves a weary sigh, wondering why he even bothered, and mutters, "Why is my sister like this?" Then, through the steam of espresso and the low hum of chatter, he sees her. Blonde twin tails, school uniform, and a face of pure, vibrating panic. Shia is sitting with a group of girls, desperately trying to play the part of a normal person while being interrogated like a suspect. Tasuku freezes in his tracks, the umbrella still damp in his hand. The shock hits him like a physical blow. It's the realization that she actually has a life, and friends that don't involve him at all. Shia is drowning in compliments she doesn't know how to swim through. To these girls, she's the cool and pretty Hoshino-san, a mysterious beauty who must be hiding some exotic secret. They're convinced she's a model or fluent in English, but Shia is shaking her head so hard she might get whiplash. She blurts out the truth with a desperate blush. "No, I was born and raised in Japan. I don't speak English at all." From his stool, Tasuku watches the stark contrast between her reputation and her reality widen with every word. The interrogation shifts to hobbies, and Shia, ever the social strategist, decides slacking off is a safe answer. It's a classic move. Minimize the personality to minimize the risk. But the air in the cafe suddenly turns cold when Akari, the girl with the sharp bangs, leans in with a look that isn't friendly anymore. The gossip-mongering stops, replaced by a pointed, heavy question. "Hoshino-san, are you dating Yoichi?" Shia's blank stare is her biggest mistake. She doesn't know a Yoichi, and she says so with an honesty that Akari takes as a slap in the face. To Akari, this cool girl is looking down on her boyfriend, acting like he's too small to even be a blip on her radar. The jealousy boils over instantly. Akari's eyes narrow, her voice sharpening into a blade as she snaps. "Are you making fun of Yoichi just because you're famous at school?" The table has become a battlefield. Akari's friend tries to explain the drama. Yoichi apparently complimented Shia, and now the girlfriend is on a warpath to reclaim her territory. Shia is barely holding it together, offering a weak smile that only fans the flames. She tries to laugh it off as a misunderstanding, but Akari isn't looking for an out, she's looking for a target. She leans across the table, her face red with a mix of fury and hurt, and yells, "You're just making fun of me." In the middle of the crowded cafe, Shia feels smaller than she ever has. The cool persona has completely dissolved, leaving only a girl whose shoulders are hunched, whose voice is a fragile whisper, and who is one more accusation away from breaking down entirely. She can't fight back because she doesn't even understand the rules of the game they're playing. Tasuku is done watching. He doesn't think. He just moves, the chair creaks as he stands, and suddenly he's the wall between Shia and the world's hostility. His heart is pounding like a hammer. His palms are sweaty, but his eyes are fixed on Akari with a resolve that wasn't there 5 minutes ago. He breaks the silence, his voice steady even as his breath catches. "Also, Shia-san is not making fun of you. Please apologize to her." The table goes silent. Akari is blinking, caught off guard by this random middle schooler stepping into a lover's quarrel with the confidence of a lead actor. Tasuku doesn't back down. He lays it out plain and simple. Shia was just answering their questions, and being targeted for her honesty is the real joke here. He tells them there is nothing to be angry about, nothing at all. Under the table, his sister Shizuku just watches the chaos with a smirk, thoroughly entertained by her brother's sudden backbone. The tension finally snaps, not with a fight, but with a reality check. Akari's friend drops the truth bomb. If Yoichi says he loves Akari, then all this insecurity is just her own ghost. The embarrassment hits Akari like a wave, and the hostility melts into a series of stammering apologies. They bow, they mumble their regrets to Hoshino-san, and the storm cloud over the table finally dissipates. Shia, still in a daze, can only offer a polite, shaky decline when they offered to buy her a drink as an apology. The walk home is quiet, the sky clearing as they wheel their bikes through the cool air. Shia is lost in her own head, her eyes fixed on the pavement. She doesn't feel like a hero who was rescued, she feels like an inconvenience who caused a scene. She sighs, all the exhaustion of the day pressing down on her. You know, that I can't blame them for thinking I'm making fun of them. It's one of the bad things about me. Tasuku looks at her, and the distance between them, the labels of movie friends and older neighbor, feels like it's finally starting to bridge. Shia stops, turning to face him with a look that is soft, honest, and entirely real. She says it simply, without any of the eccentric flair she usually hides behind. "Thank you." Tasuku's face lights up redder than a taillight, his brain short-circuiting as he stammers out a messy response. He's standing there, flustered and foolish. But in that moment, he's never been more sure of where he wants to be. The final bell rings, and the air thickens with the smell of summer, and the frantic plans of kids who finally have time to waste. While his classmates argue over math homework and karaoke, Tasuku is already mentally miles away. He's counting the seconds until Wednesday movie time, but the schedule just went up and Smoke Hoshino is right there, leaning into his personal space, with that familiar, chaotic energy. The digital clock reads 11:34 a.m. In Tasuku's head, he had a solid 5 hours to mentally prepare, to breathe, to not be a disaster. Then comes the screeching of a bicycle brake and a casual greeting that ruins everything. Hoshino stands there in the sunlight, eyes fixed on him, demanding he stop looking away. "What was that?" she asks, and suddenly the safety of 5 p.m. is gone. She's overcomplicating things again, rambling about what can and can't be said, but her eyes are wider than usual. Then she drops the question that makes the pavement feel like it's tilting. "Wanna watch the movie now then?" Tasuku's brain hits a recursive loop. An invite today? Right now? It's the kind of spontaneous luck that carries the sting of a trap. Absolute panic sets in. He's spent the day in a stuffy classroom, and the thought of Hoshino smelling the middle school boy on him is a death sentence. He pulls a world record-breaking sprint, disappears into a cloud of steam for a 3-minute shower, and makes it back to the door before his heart rate even has a chance to level out. He's breathless, damp, and desperate to look like he didn't just run a marathon for her sake. The room is quiet, the flickering light of the screen the only thing moving between them. Hoshino is curled up on the floor in leggings and a t-shirt, looking entirely too comfortable for Tasuku's peace of mind. He watches her face more than the anime, a small, quiet sense of relief washing over him. "I'm glad, Oko," he murmurs, just happy that they've found a way back to this, back to being movie friends without the weight of the world on them. They linger on the credits, the shared silence feeling less like a barrier and more like a bridge. Tasuku watches the character on screen overcome her hurdles and thinks he finally sees the appeal. This movie was easy. It was safe. He lets himself believe that maybe, just maybe, he's finally starting to understand the way Hoshino's mind works. But Shia doesn't do easy for long. She suggests diving back into the difficult stuff. The movies they couldn't finish because they were too heavy, too strange. She smiles, telling him it's okay to not understand what you don't understand. But the invitation feels like she's testing the depth of the water again. A buzz from his phone breaks the spell. A girl's name flashes on the screen, and the tension within the room instantly changes. Shia's casual lean turns into a sharp interrogation, her eyes narrowing as she realizes Tasuku has a life outside their movie sessions. She leans in, the question dropping like a lead weight. Do you like her? Tasuku's brain hits a dead end. The stuttering starts before he can think to stop it. No, it's not her. It's not anyone else. The truth just tumbles out, messy and unvarnished, right into the middle of the room. I like you, Shia-san. He stares at her, his face burning, waiting for the floor to open up. She doesn't flinch. She just rests her chin on her hand and says, I see. The silence isn't comfortable anymore. It's freezing. Shia looks at him, her expression unreadable, before raising a single finger to underscore the finality of her words. Her voice is level, devoid of the energy she usually uses as a shield. You better give up on me. It's not a joke, and it's not a flustered denial. It's a warning. Then, as if she didn't just tear the air out of his lungs, she claps her hands and demands they get back to the movie. The transition is brutal. Tasuku sits there, rigid and hollowed out, staring at a screen he can't see anymore. He's surrounded by things he doesn't understand, and for the first time, the gap between them feels like an abyss. She looks away, her profile sharp against the dim light. She's right there, inches away, but she's never felt more distant. The unlickable side she's always warned him about is finally showing its face, cold and immovable. The movie plays on, a background noise, to the wreck of Tasuku's afternoon. She offers a small piece of praise, that's the way to go, Takun, but it lands like a consolation prize for a game he's already lost. He stares ahead, his eyes wide and vacant, trying to find a way to breathe in a room that suddenly has no oxygen. As the credits roll for the second time, the resolve in Tasuku's chest starts to harden. He doesn't understand her difficult words yet, but he refuses to let this be the end. Hoshino mentions her summer plans, part-time work, a busy schedule already looking toward a future that might not include him. But he's watching the calendar too, and he's not ready to let the summer slip away.